There's one truth in the cosmos, one cosmic truth. The truth is, you don't know, huh? You don't know. What's up? That's it, huh? All right, now. Miles Johnston. Let's say hi to Miles.
Let's. Hi, Miles.
Hi, Miles. Thank you, Miles. It's a pleasure being here, and it's an honor being here. And I'd like to, thank your audience for listening in.
And you've been around places, haven't you? I mean, you're traveling and you're doing things.
Yeah, it seems like I've been activated, maybe hearing about the last 2 years. And so my lifestyle's changed a little bit. And so I do a little bit of traveling and stuff, and I do my investigations.
But you have family history, and let's go on to that first, because I mean that's pretty serious in terms of what your family did. Foundation of the nation state or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, you'd almost look at it like some big coincidence or something. But I come from a family of Pharonic Dominators, and my second book, which I just completed, and it's getting printed right now. It's called "My Family Created the National Security State," and in parentheses, no need to thank me. And so it's been quite interesting.
So, what is your family? I mean, what is the connection with your family and and what you just said, the nation state? I mean, that's a heck of a thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a heck of a claim, but it's actually something that's very easy to investigate. In other words, it's all official record and stuff. It's we know that we have these presidents, and they're in there for 4 years at a time. And really, what can a man be expected to do in 4 years? And so there's really, or in the past, it's hard to really gauge how things work right now in government. But what I know is how they used to work about 70 years ago. And it just so happened that my great uncle, George Mahon, my father's uncle, controlled every dollar of the United States defense budget for 40 years. And that's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and all this. And not only that, he was personally responsible for creating the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, NASA, the Manhattan Project, Project Paperclip. I mean, just go down the list. My great uncle paid for it, and he's a very humble acting person who has a lot of personal authority. And it's interesting that even though most people have not heard of this man, he has a distinction of being the only congressional leader that had a statue made of him, not only while he was still alive, one of these full-size statues that they have in the Capitol there in D.C., but actually while he was still serving, as the House leader, And since then they've changed where the House of Congress is, and it's a much bigger facility now. But if you today go to the old Capitol dome, as they speak, the person who is giving you the tour will split up the group and put half of the people over here and half of the people over there, and their assistant goes over there, and she's telling them the whole time, this is back when this is set up, this is where Congressman Mahon used to sit. These people over here, they'd have them whisper, and the people over here could hear every word that they were saying, but not vice versa. In other words, the structure of the dome was such, with the sacred geometry and stuff. And of course, it wasn't just a coincidence that certain people were sitting where they were sitting, So,
well, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
So it's fascinating.
So does this give you a unique bloodline, or he just happened to be lucky, or happened to be a decent guy and not get in the sort of maelstrom of scandal and gossip and stuff that happens in politics. Well, I mean, how did he get there, and how did he stay there?
Oh, no, that's a very good question. And he was a man of very few words. It's a lot of his signature is, is what you mostly see. But it's interesting to, even though the things I've learned about what happened then back then, the National Security Act of 1947, all the stuff that happened in 1947, Roswell, whatever, Ron L. Hubbard, all that stuff in 1947. And, but my family, people are not generally aware of these things. And so I was just told that he was someone who had unimaginable power, an amount of type of power that you can't imagine. But one story that they did tell me is that everywhere across the world in these meetings, United Nations, whatever, these big balls and stuff like this, these people would come and they would be introduced, to the entire, assembly or whatever. And then and then they go straight back there to the back table, where my great uncle is sitting, and give their respects or whatever. And then they join the party. I mean, it don't matter if you run into your mama or your sister or anything like that. It's almost like a ritual. It sounds a lot like a ritual to me.
Well, was it a ritual? I mean, we know of lots of rituals that are being done in this sort of business. I mean, it's a pretty ritual business. There's a lot of codes and things everywhere.
That's right. It is a very ritualistic, but myself being involved in a secret society, being an initiate in the OTO and stuff like that, I am someone who sees life as a ritual. And a lot of my activities, for instance, when I went to Peru about 10 months ago, and then Mexico about 7 months ago, I was involved in different types of rituals there. And so rituals is something that I think is a good thing, and so.
Well, it's all down to intention. Well, okay, you mentioned the OTO. That's a pretty big organization. It's got lots of contacts. Explain all that. Explain your family. Explain you and your connections with that.
Well, let me tell you, your listeners, if you want to know anything about the OTO, you should reference Lon Milo Duquette. I mean, because this man is brilliant. He's a poet and an author and a songwriter. And anything, I'm not a spokesman for the order. And but I can tell you that I'm involved, and I've been involved for a number of years. And so, what else would you like me to tell you about besides that?
Insofar as now that you've mentioned it, in what way does that signify an importance as to what you're saying? Say what you
really
can
doesn't.
say.
Oh yeah, well let me tell you, it has I would say just the ritualistic sense. In other words, but people, a man might think that his ritual in the mornings is to shower, shit, and shave, and so we all live in rituals. I mean, your graduation at your high school and everything like this. And so my involvement with the order, it really has nothing to do with my story, but it's like, if I was, for instance, a man of God who was a God-fearing Christian or something like that, this might be the point, where I might interject that. But I'm not a Christian, and I'm not anti-Christian, and so I'm telling you that I'm involved in I'm in a secret society that's a good one.
Okay, a lot of these societies have got reputations. They've a lot of fear about all this sort of stuff. Can you say something which will be meaningful to people who would allay those
Oh,
fears?
yes, I really can. I really can. All of these, not only these Western secret societies, but even these Eastern secret societies, they're really, it's, a lot of it is based on archetypes and sacred geometry, things like that, things that are maybe more subjective in their use, but very powerful in their own right. Well, especially here in Western school systems, we're not taught the validity or veracity of any of this stuff, or, just looking at the stars, to try to and I'm not a stargazer, and so I can't really talk about that, but
well, we have this phrase, as above, so below. Does that link? I mean, that's why you need the sacred geometry to explain some of that.
Oh yes, for sure. there's ancient beliefs that say that you should study platonic solids, And so I've made a number of, solid things out of metal and stuff that are platonic solids, like a dodecahedron is one that I really resonate with. And so, when maybe burning incense or maybe listening to certain, percussive sounds and stuff and contemplating these platonic solids, you can, calm your body down.
In what way are you suggesting that in terms of the resonance, the relevant resonance of that sound in a particular chamber or structure? Do you do it in that kind of way?
Well, I would maybe, I wouldn't have that much, qualification to talk about that, but this does bring up something interesting, Miles, and something's happened and changed about me since the last time you and I talked last November. And that is that about 2 weeks ago, there had been a number of different things going on. First of all, I've been doing some intense bodybuilding, and I'm probably 10 to 11 pounds heavier right now than the last time I talked to you. And I'm working with some people at a gym that's really special and stuff, and I yell a lot and stuff, and that's kind of a weird story within itself. But about 2 weeks ago, apparently I had a full or partial Kundalini awakening.
Wow.
Yes, and I had been, and I of course I didn't think, oh, I'm having a Kundalini awakening. It's like I reached out to one of my sisters, not from the lodge. This lady is a healer, and she's someone I've known for 31 years because we were from the same town together, Lubbock, Texas. And her name is Kira, and she has a lot of people that she sees, but she's able to move energy like remotely. And there had been some other things that were going on in my life, a special lady from our same past. In other words, it was just all these coincidences coming together. But what had happened is after this like very intense workout with Francis, my personal trainer, the driver took me home, and I took this nap, and I curled up with my little dog, and I took this really nap, and I was having these lucid dreams. And then I woke up and I was crying uncontrollably. If you can imagine that. And,
do you want to go into what those dreams were? Do you want to explain what that experience actually was to an audience? I mean, it's obviously something very personal.
There was another lady that this other lady knows. And, this other lady is somebody who is a very powerful lady. And she is someone who goes all around the world doing very important work. And she is one of the most beautiful women in the world. And we've known each other 31 years. And we just like got together, and it was just, and then she told me from the very beginning, Miles, she was wanting to get my semen to have a child. I don't want to, give too many details about that, but not only that, so that was one thing. But then what had happened, and she told me what she was doing, is that I got an anointing, and it was very real and very hard hitting to me, and it was completely of a sexual nature that went on for, I guess, days, and in some ways 2 weeks. But it was this some type of the anointing itself either happened in one night or over the period of several days. And there's so many things that I can't tell you about that because it's just so new. I did not understand, I thought these were descriptive words. But since that time, I've had a calm over me, and I've got a calm that I can control now. And the thing is, by having this calm, it made me realize that there's only been turmoil in my heart my entire life. Okay. And I'm just gonna, let your listeners know, I'm not a young man anymore. You know what I mean? I'm still a young man, but I'm not a younger man. And, so in any ways, I reached out to Kira, and she told me to call her, and we started talking about some things. And right off the bat, she's asking me questions, and then she starts moving stuff. We're doing a Skype interview. She's It's like, she's like, can you feel that? And I was like, yeah. I mean, what are you doing? This is no one. I didn't really. I want to believe in stuff like this, but no one's ever worked with me like that. But basically that was pretty much just it. I quit crying, and she told me some things about, that it's just, you forget about everybody else, it's all about love and all this stuff. And she's been telling me this stuff for like months, and I was thinking, oh, well, she talks about love, a bunch of stuff like that. But I mean, it's one thing to be talking about all this stuff, but it's another thing to energetically move and affect somebody's body. And then I became a client of hers, I guess maybe, less than a week and a half ago. And on these sessions, she works with me like she's working with me physically. And it's like, it's a trip. But I have become more calm, and that's made me more effective.
Well, that's wonderful news. I mean, the
dealings.
last time we talked, you were a pretty, hot walker type of a guy, bang, 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 and you've done fantastic things. You got full of energy, but this is a
Well,
profound time. It's also a coincidence that we're doing this at this time. This.
Yes, and yeah, it's a coincidence that we're taping on your show, the Basis Project, right now at this time. But let me tell you, that other man is still right there beneath the skin. And if you decide to ask me about Mexico and the blood sacrifice rituals that I was involved in down there, and you ask me to recount that story, it's it's there. We just might see a different side of me, because it triggers you. That's one thing about the more intense rituals. It triggers you. You know what I mean? And it takes you back there where you're just, you can feel the blood.
Do you want to talk about that now? Well, I mean, I was going to leave your trips for another few minutes, but since you've gone through this experience, it's just entirely up to you how you want to proceed.
Well, all right. So did you want to talk about Peru and the ayahuasca ritual, or did you want to talk about the blood sacrifice ritual in Mexico?
Well, since you've mentioned it, let's talk about the blood sacrifice ritual in Mexico.
Okay. Well, it was fascinating because the last autumnal equinox, it's getting a little bit hot in here. The last autumnal equinox of 2016, we went down there to see one of the most powerful men in Mexico at this time, the sorcerer Enrique Berdon. And, we arranged to see him ahead of time. And we went down there to Catemaco, which is known as the city of the witches, or the town of witches. Catemaco is a town that is on the shores of Laguna Catemaco, which is the most sacred lake in Mexico. It's in the state of Veracruz. It's one of the most intensely magical places in all of Mexico, which, as most of your listeners know, is an intensely, intensely magical place. In spite of, a lot of the materialistic, things that's been, forced on the, Mexican people. But anyway, on the shores of Laguna Catemaco is White Monkey Mountain. And so anyway, we went down there, we had already contacted Enrique, and we went down there to Catemaco. We had this, rented SUV. And so we drove through there, and my assistant, Rick, he would only allow us to drive during the day, because even though there was not a warning advisory from the U.S. Department of Justice about the goddamn, those armed groups, I don't want to mention any names, but it starts with a C and it ends with tells. So anyway, you got to be careful about that stuff. Well, anyway, and we found out that there was actually one down there like it. I'm not going to give them any press. I'm not going to say their name. I'm not going to say anything about them. They were strange because they were kind of like an anti. They were like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. But so we ended up in Catemaco, which is the city of the witches, and we got to our hotel, and it just so happened Enrique Berdon's cousin was the main guy there. You know what I mean? And so I had instructed Rick to introduce me not to everyone, but just only different attorneys. We have to sometimes meet with attorneys to go through to talk to city officials to get access to special areas of museums. You know what I mean? You can make a donation to a goddamn, political, campaign and stuff like this. If you want to see an elongated skull or something like that, you just got to do what you got to do. But I was having Rick introduce me as a Caballero Templario, okay? And that just basically means a Knights Templar, which is exactly what I am. A Caballero can be a cowboy, it can be a rich landowner, or it can be a knight, like a knight in shining armor. And so Caballero in this sense is a term for Knights Templar. Well, fascinatingly enough, I don't know whether it's through a video game or through something else, but the goddamn CL down there named themselves that. See, they're like, oh my God, don't introduce me as that anymore, because the guy who was helping us, Enrique's cousin, he brought up a deal on the internet, and there was this guy who was all hung, shot, stopped, murdered, and it had this goddamn sign on him that said some stuff in Spanish, and that said Caballero Templario, and we're like, oh no, we're not gonna say that anymore. I was thinking that's what they did to Caballero Templarios, and then we went back and looked at the letters, like, no, that's what the Caballero Templarios did to somebody else. But goddamn, either way, we don't want any type of association with that, and so it's like we're from Canada, fuck that, huh? So anyway, we got put in touch with Enrique's people on White Monkey Mountain, and then we found, or I hadn't been sharing this with the team, but I did share with the team on that night because I felt like they deserved to know the article from the Daily News out of the UK. And you probably know more about the Daily News than I do. I don't know if it's more of a legit newspaper, or if it's like a National Enquirer, or if it's like somewhere in between. But they had sent this team down there to do a hack job to Enrique Berdon. But one thing that came out of it is Gerald L. Long, working with the people that they sent down there to Mexico and the Daily, News, took some pictures that are just astonishing. And it was the whole village involved in this blood sacrifice ritual, all the costumes, the 40-foot tall flaming pentagram, the sorcerers, the wizards, the children dressed in all their gay costumes and stuff like this, and everybody, just participating how they can in a rite, in a ritual that is probably easily over 1,000 years old, and even if they now have some Christian concepts in it, have been injected into it, that's just kind of how the things work.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they do. They go and stick a little bit of Christianity in there to make it, we still have controls, so to speak. Exactly.
Yeah, of course, the Catholic Church is the one that does this, and I'm not, disparaging them in any way, but I will tell you in advance that as I begin to recount this story, that I was surprised of the presence of Lucifer. In other words, I'm not somebody. If people knew what I did, which, is nothing wrong with it. And these rituals, of course, I have my own black robe and all that stuff. We're talking about black robes, people standing around in black robes, lighting candles and doing all this stuff, and maybe some dramatic reenactment. Some people who were more like fundamental Christians might think, oh, this is a Satanist. This is a Satanist. And what's interesting is that those people don't realize that their conception of these Satanists, most of them, not all of them, but most of them laugh at the idea of Satan. In other words, there's only people involved in the occult. There's only a very small percentage of Satanists. I mean, it's just, they consider it just an idea and everything like this, just as I do, and the same thing with Lucifer. I more or less consider that. But this ceremony did change my conception of Lucifer a little bit.
Well, and what are your perceptions? What are your perceptions of those individuals or those beings before the ceremony and after? Is there a difference? What sort of difference?
Before, it was something I literally would have laughed at. I literally would have laughed at. Oh, Lucifer, yeah, come on, And I mean, I'm the guy over here in the black robes doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? So that's, and there, so I think most people in Western esotericism or Western hermetic orders more or less feel like that. But however, there are some people who have had like satanic churches and stuff like this. And apparently at some time they took themselves seriously. And I'm not saying that they weren't doing, I believe the power comes from the human being anyway, so if you want to put it up to Lucifer or Satan, it's like you said earlier, intent. It comes down to intent, and and the personal power and authority. And many, many, many other factors, most of which I do not understand.
So, what was the result of the ceremony in your perception of what you think now?
Well, it remains to be seen what the result is. One thing is that. It just remains to be seen. One of the results is that I'm going back to see Enrique as soon as I can. I was involved in a black magic ritual and a white magic ritual, and the white magic ritual took place the following day, and it was all love, light, and peace. And that's the one that my documentary team filmed. What I have not, I kind of got caught up in the story, but what I have not mentioned yet is after seeing these pictures by Gerald L. Long, my team was scared shitless, and they refused to accompany me to White Monkey Mountain.
So are you talking L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientology guy?
What about him?
No, I thought you referred to him, L. Ron. No,
I didn't. And please forgive my West Texas accent, Miles. I'm from Lubbock, Texas. You goddamn, But here's the deal: my documentary film team refused to accompany me to White Monkey Mountain after they saw the pictures that Gerald L. Long took and that were published in the Daily News over there in the UK, but they have an international like online newspaper, and the title is horrific, bloody mass sacrifice, and it was a hatchet job. So it was built to fill you with fear. And these pictures that Gerald L. Long took were so compelling, with the fire, with the goats having their necks sliced and the blood going into the big censer and everything like this. And obviously, seeing everyone in the community involved, even children dressed up with their pageantry, with these costumes and these, like Aztec looking symbols, praying to their pagan gods. You know what I mean? But mixed once again mixed with a symbol, a mixture of Christianity.
So, well, hopefully we'll get those pictures, put them in the edit. But can you describe further what that meant, and what was the reason why your crew were so? What was the thing? What was the thing that made your crew not want to participate?
Oh, they didn't know if I was going to come back alive. We made preparations. They already had their own airplane tickets and everything like this. But I gave them all my money, and I gave them all my stuff, maybe except for my passport. And we had specific written instructions what to do if I did not come back alive. These people have families and stuff. You know what I mean? They got people they got to answer to and stuff like that. Miles, I wasn't scared for a second. I would never did it bother me. And then once I saw the henchman, one of Enrique's henchmen that came to pick me up, and he came with an old man. And they were just afraid. And one of these men is my personal assistant. And this guy ain't no joke. I mean, he's a knockout artist. This guy, he can handle up on stuff. But you're in a foreign country. This is not America. You don't know what the government's, the policia, the federales. You don't know what anyone is going to do. But for the most part, if you mind your own business and do act legally, at least in this part of Mexico and Veracruz at this time, it was pretty cool. Pretty good.
You give me the army. You give me the army. They love me. Those million men, they love me. They love me. We march. We march. We march. There is no death. We march into death. We love death. We live with death. There is no death. There is no life. There is only life and death. Excuse me. Don't worry that the people are afraid of me. I love the people. The people know that I love them. Okay?
now you need lay down and with the back with the top and you say pardon me water for contaminate to you, air for contaminate to you, the
Do you
air
understand?
and the air.
Do I need to humble myself? Am I humbling myself to the cosmos?
You're saying
Yes.
Como, o sea,
otra vez.
okay. Como diciendo, o sea, va a permanecer boca
You're gonna
abajo.
lay down.
Sí, como pidiéndole perdón a la tierra, al agua,
Okay, yeah.
al aire.
So okay, continúa, perdón.
Sí, o sea, como pidiendo perdón a la tierra, al agua, al aire por contaminarla, por hacerle daño. Y cuando él esté de espaldas, que el fuego del sol purifique su cuerpo, empezando por sus espaldas y todas las partes de su cuerpo. Más o menos les explicas eso, ¿no?
Okay. Ya entiendo. King, so you're gonna lay down when you come out of there, and you're gonna lay down and you're gonna say sorry to the earth.
I'm going to apologize.
You're gonna apologize
Okay.
to the earth.
Who am I going to apologize to?
Let me finish.
Who?
Let me finish. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Oh, bro, it's just that I can't hear you because I'm deaf.
You're gonna apologize to the earth, the air, the water, and the cosmos.
Okay, but
For contaminating
I'm
it.
not going to apologize to the fire.
Fuego?
El fuego no se puede contaminar, el fuego es el que
You
el
can't
fuego del sol
You can't
le va a limpiar desde la parte de su espalda, por eso va a permanecer así en la...
You can't contaminate the fire.
Oh, so I only
The
apologize.
fire is what is going to purify you for when you after you apologize
Yo
to.
entiendo.
Okay.
I apologize to the earth.
No, you got to come up and lay down.
The air and the...
And
¿Cómo
the
se dice la
earth.
tierra? Air suena como
Earth.
aire, ¿no?
Earth.
Air y aire, air.
Air, yeah.
Air, ajá. Ok, deja que entonces que se... Sí, primero déjalo que se relaje, tranquilo, y ya después
Okay.
que sea... cuando
Just
lo que sea
relax
necesario.
yourself, and get ready for this next part.
Well, it was a trip. It was a trip. We went up there to White Monkey Mountain, okay? And we went to Enrique's compound with his henchmen. And then once we got there, his other henchmen were there. And there was the big guy. And I got to stand up for a second. But there was a big guy and everything like this. And then we went in there in Enrique's compound, and he has this beautiful patio where there's like animals painted everywhere. Like the top is like a tree canopy with all these parrots and stuff, painted on it and everything like this, and a big jaguar and everything like this. And the old man was there with me, and then a beautiful woman walked up, a beautiful, amazingly beautiful Mexican woman. And this was Yane, the beautiful sorceress. And she was wearing jeans and a blue t-shirt, dressed very casually. And she asked me if I needed anything. And I said no. And I was, complimenting her on the, this surroundings and everything. And she told me that the maestro would be there soon. Enrique Berdón prefers to be known internationally as the Good Son. There's another part to his title that's written in Spanish, and I don't really actually know that right now. But his name is Enrique Martin Berdón, and it was in a casual manner when I was at the hotel, because I had known instinctively that Enrique Martin Berdón is one of the most powerful men in Mexico, and I had an off moment with his nephew at the hotel, who's running the hotel there. And I said, is he one of the most powerful men in Mexico? And his cousin looked me straight in the eye, and then he looked away, and he took a breath, and he thought about it, and he said, at this time. So, at this time. Enrique Martin Berdon is one of the most powerful men in Mexico. There's other powerful people in Catemaco. It is the city of the witches. And not all of them like Enrique. And I've never heard his uncle Fido Berdon say anything against him, but I met with him too. But there's different people that have different expressions in this town. And there's a lot of it having to do with the tourist industry, you know. But it's all that there's a very heavy vibe and heavy current. It's a place of power in the earth. This is a volcanic lake, which is new. You know, it's not a man-made lake, but it's new in that the volcanic formations and stuff like that. And that's the reason it brings, you know, such a power. And on White Monkey Mountain, they've got these goddamn monkeys, and they're white. You know, so.
Was it because of astrological significance or a movement of the planets or some kind of a thing that it meant that he had that power at that time?
I don't know. I think it was because, and let me tell you why, or let me tell you his explanation for it, because he comes from a family of sorcerers. That he was somebody that who forsook the ways of his ancestors. In other words, he was not interested in sorcery. He was more maybe interested in disco or things that young people do. And so he went away from that. And even though he had been raised in that, even though maybe up to 10 or 12 years, but maybe when he turned about 24 or 25 years old, he decided to get back into it after being a bricklayer and stuff like that for years. And one thing that he was very proud of that he told me is that for the last 9 years, and this man is 52 years old, and for the last 9 years, he's been making a living solely from doing his work. I mean, I call it sorcery. That's probably not what he calls it, but and you know, of course, he has his compound and everything like that. So everyone in Mexico has to work very hard. They have a vibrant economy there. The fact that it takes 20 pesos to make $1 makes people think, oh, their economy is weak and all that stuff. No, that's really just that their currency is disvalued from ours. So everybody there, from what I can see, who wants a job can get one. But at the same time, yes, they have to work very hard. And so he was very proud of that.
And what happened with the ceremony that would have been so scary to your crew? I mean, were they justified in not coming with you?
Well, they were, and we even had a conversation about it, and there was the reasons that they were afraid, because people are real fear-based anyway. But immediately, as soon as they told me that, I was totally forgiving of them, because I knew that it was meant to be. And I didn't know, and I was even telling them the next day on the white magic ritual, not even half jokingly, Lucifer didn't want y'all to be there, you know, filming the deal. Now, Enrique Berdon was a little bit disappointed, but we filmed the next day, the white magic ritual, with Enrique and Yane, the beautiful sorceress, and the old man, the mysterious old man, and the boat captain, who made sure we never photographed any of the serial numbers of his boat. And then he also did not want to be photographed. And so, you know, he didn't know what this documentary was going to be about. And that also maybe, I don't think that Enrique Berdon has a bad reputation in Catemaco, but he's one of the heavy hitters. You know what I mean? He's the guy up on White Monkey Mountain. He's the guy that's got the fucking power, or knows how to touch the power.
But it would seem that you were given the opportunity to have an experience which meant that you could actually experience this on your own without if the documentary team were there, you would have been it would have been distracting, perhaps.
I think so, and it could have taken away from the sense of mystery, you know, because my retelling of this tale is, frankly, you know, I did my first, world premiere video with you, and then I subsequently did an interview with the Leak Project, and that it's already had like 18,500 views. So, it's not really the book that people mostly want to hear about. It's this blood sacrifice ritual. It's somehow compelling, you know. And
well, why do they do it? What does it actually mean? I mean, we hear about these blood sacrifices, and we've seen it on Hammer horror movies and stuff like that, and we all get very we all get very sort of scared, blah blah blah, and maybe maybe there's other things involved that we need to know about. Can you tell us about that?
Well, here's the deal. Every time you go eat a hamburger, that's a blood sacrifice ritual, minus the ritual. So you're cheating yourself every time you eat a hamburger and get meat from the store. Now, if you're a vegetarian and a vegan, which maybe the human being was designed to be, but I'm not, then I can't, make a rebuttal. But all I can tell you is that since I have changed about a month ago, I'm now realizing that I'm treating these animals with love. These animals are special animals. From the moment they were born, these animals were special animals, and they're treated better than the other farm animals. And they have special traits and characteristics which are needed for these different occult groups. Like there was a beautiful goat, male goat, with the horns and everything, with the long, white hair that they did. I've seen on one of their, videos recently. But the goat that I sacrificed was the goat that had been born and bred to be the goat to be sacrificed this spring equinox. This last spring equinox. Well, I got him ahead of time, okay? Because, we had been talking about them and talking about making the deal with Enrique Pedron when we were in the United States. And he was like, okay, that sounds good. He's like, hit me up when you get here. You know what I mean? In other words, get over here and then we'll finalize the deal. When I went and talked to Enrique, they brought the maestro in, and this is and he was one wearing these Guevara shirts. I can't remember exactly what they're called, but it's kind of like a traditional Mexican shirt, but you're with nice embroidery on it. And I'm telling you, this man looked at least 10 years younger than he is. When you look at some pictures of him, especially on those pictures taken by Gerald L. Long, he looks his age in those pictures, which is about 52 or 53. But when I saw him, and on the footage that I have, that you've even put your, used one of those pictures, he looks considerably younger. Considerably. He looks like a man who's, maybe 42 years old or something like this. He's a very powerful individual. He doesn't, his English is better than my Spanish. And we talked about a few things. And he showed me this team that came from Russia. That's a famous psychic from Russia. And they traveled all the way across the world with their documentary film team. And he showed me some stuff, the newspaper article, and him doing rituals with this guy who's famous in Russia, I guess. If I said his name, I doubt you'd know who he is, but it was all very interesting. But that guy and his whole team, he charged them $2,000 in American. Okay. And so he reasoned that, since it was just basically just me there, my team chickened out and everything like this, he would charge me $1,000 American. Of course, I instantly agreed. And so then that's when they had to put in the call to go get the clairvoyant girl who lives in a nearby village, because they have to have the clairvoyant girl. At this point, I still did not know anything about Lucifer, but I knew that there was going to be, I knew about the goat, because they already told me, not only, what I'm kind of getting from my man, where there's the goat, the clairvoyant girl, the falling down, the white magic ritual, they bought all the flowers. There's many flowers. I don't know if you've had time to look at those videos from the white magic ritual, but and so.
Is this the balancing of energies? Is there some kind of balance involved here?
It really is, Miles. I think that's really what it is, because on the black magic ritual, that if we would have delayed it even one day, it would not have been on the autumnal equinox. But of course, I had already been drinking, of course, eating meat and all this stuff, maybe even doing whatever else people do in Mexico, and so not being cleansed or whatever. But he made sure to tell me that by midnight to not eat any meat. So here's one thing that we keep saying, a recurring thing that we keep saying, like with these ayahuasca rituals in Peru and everywhere else, these shamans, they have all these lists of rules. You know what I mean? Do this, don't do that, don't have sex, all this stuff. Well, when it comes down to where I'm dealing with this shaman, in the jungles of the Amazon or whatever, like it was in, Puerto Maldonado in Peru or whatever, or in Mexico, wherever it is, these motherfuckers, they get one look at me and they're like, fuck it, this guy ain't going to follow in the rules. They're like, we get one rule. I get one rule. That's it. One rule. Ugh. So the one rule is don't eat meat.
And did you do that? Did you not eat meat?
No. I follow the rules.
Okay.
If you can get me down to one rule, I'll follow the damn rule. You know, I'm not. I'm not a I believe in the. You know, I know that the laws, rules, and stuff like that are like weak reflections of cosmic law. You know, so I am a law abider. You know what I mean? You know, am I just if I do, you know, look at some 420 or something like that every once in a while, that's not here nor there. You know, everybody's doing that, and I'm just a law abider. You know, but especially of cosmic law.
Okay, describe cosmic law, please, because it's quite important here.
Well, you know, it's just be kind to others. You know, that's part of it. And it's just, I don't know, it's a very subjective thing for every person.
What's the significance of the spear, or is it a knife on a...
Oh, no, this is a spear. And, you know, Miles, we're right here in my new studio that I'm so happy about. It's a brand new studio, and I'm one of the owners of this studio, and it's a fantastic facility. We've got these control rooms, you know, isolation booths, and all this stuff. And there's for our social engagements and stuff, we have a pool out here, hot tub, and all this stuff. And there was a great party just the other night, but it's heavily involved with the consciousness community. And I've been involved with several leaders in the consciousness community here in Austin. And so it's been a very humbling experience. It's been something that's been going on for 3 or 4 years. And I've been, you know, welcomed into this community. And so it's the one thing that really, you know, in other words, you're someone that, you have been in the consciousness community or whatever, varying different names that have been for it for decades.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm humbly, you know, being, you know, accepted into your world. And so I thank you.
I mean, for instance, there's the New Age movement. That's a sort of a 60s thing. Are you talking about something that's...
No, I'm talking about something completely valid. I mean, we're now finding out that, you know, and just like just almost any good thing is ultimately going to be hijacked. But, you know, this New Age stuff, you know, might have been some big, you know, CIA, you know, plot or something like that. But
yeah, well, we know that.
Yeah, right. But the true consciousness community today is something very vibrant, very real, very organic. And it's something that I'm just an admirer of and just a participant, you know, just glad to be out there in the audience and, you know, be exposed to people who are, you know, raising the consciousness of the feminine divine, you know, bringing about an awareness of our Sophia, you know, the earth goddess. These are things that I am on board with.
I was in Austin, Texas there about 18 months ago for one of the Secret Space Program conferences. And there is an area in Austin which is a little bit sort of far out, as you would say. It's kind of got that higher spirituality. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, you know, they had this saying in Austin, and when all these bumper stickers and stuff, and it says, keep Austin weird. You know, so there may have been an element of that before, but let me ask you on the Secret Space Program, was that deal that they had out in Bastrop?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I was there, yeah. I think they went back there. Yeah, it was the time I was there, the rains, there'd been a lot of flooding stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, they had this one guy one time that I was anyway. His ex-FBI guy talking about the balloons of the 1800s. You know, the sky ships of the late. That, I mean, it was the most fascinating thing. And then just to find out all the facts that shit was absolutely real. There was people, real normal people like you and me, getting up in these things that were like way different than Zeppelins. And they were these sky ships, you know, and they were going down, and then they'd need water, and they'd come down and get water from farmers in West Texas and stuff. I mean, there was articles all over the place. This shit is absolutely 100% real. And they did get nudged out or whatever by some secret space program, or, you know, somehow the whole thing got militarized, obviously.
Right. So this is like 1890s or something, or what?
Yeah, right. And so 1880s? The whole thing was brought into ridicule, you know, but a lot of the families that were involved in this mysteriously disappeared, but, you know, probably not even to be, you know, assassinated or anything, but, you know, just the whole, this idea of breakaway civilizations, you know, I'm not down with the whole, you know, secret space program, Corey Good, all that stuff. Obviously we see he's coming under a lot of fire now for good reason, I think.
Why do you think he's
for good reason, right?
Why do you...
His story just sounds like bullshit to me. I mean, come on, we're going to fly off to heaven with the goddamn blue avians. But I was a marshal, and, you know, I was like slaughtering aliens with a, you know, submachine gun on Mars yesterday. Come on, man. What the fuck, dude? They got to have some credibility. in this goddamn community, huh? And that's why that man who used to be with Kerry Cassidy, who with the Avalon
Yeah.
Project, that guy has come out strong against him, and rightfully so, man. And the guy who's the dark journalist, and journalist has published that story, just lambasting Corey Good, which needs to happen. That's not my job. I'm not going to do that. But come on, let's get these jokers out of the way. David Wilcock, he thinks he's so goddamn smart, huh? Well, goddamn, man.
I have to say, I did have reservations about Corey Good.
Well, man, it's just a bunch of. Listen, at the very best, he's somebody who's mind controlled to send out disinformation. At the very best, at the very worst, he's just somebody who smokes a lot of pot and has a good imagination or something. But there's no way in hell that David Wilcock doesn't know. And he said, "Oh, I vetted this and I vetted that," and he's just kind of standing over there on the corner with his pink shorts. Come on, man, doing the goddamn contact in the desert deal. It's just it's kind of sad to see how many people got fooled by that, but it's really over time, overdue that some of these opinions be brought out.
What do you mean by contact of the desert? Is there some problem?
Contact it. Well, just Corey Good was and with David Wilcock were the featured speakers at Contact in the Desert, and it's a huge deal. And a good organization, who I think is a good organization, which is Gaia TV, unfortunately made a bad decision and had Corey Good and David Wilcock telling their wild story while you have all these other people like Michael Tellinger and stuff like that giving vital information that the human race needs to know, very valuable information, but that you can't call them all right. And Gaia TV made a bad call on that, giving them that,
I mean, I suppose, I don't want to speak for anybody or criticize too many people, but I think you've got to let somebody speak, and there is the phrase, give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. And, listen, maybe Gaia TV was really even doing maybe they made the right call and did the right thing by doing that, just to show what will happen to people that aren't genuine. I mean, you've got people that have given their lives. I mean, I don't even want to mention names, but I mean, these would be all names that to make the community aware, of these, whatever this alien thing is, these alien presence or alien threat, or then what these world leaders have been doing, and so it's the most serious subject in the world, and it's a personal affront to me. And I'm not saying anything against the blue avians, because I think that William Henry, who's a brilliant man, has done great work with the blue avians. And frankly, it was just pissing me off that Corey Good was trying to tie his shit to the blue avians, because William Henry is a genius.
John Lear comes up with this phrase, UFO disease. Do you think Corey Good got UFO disease?
Truthfully, I haven't listened to that much of his information, but it must be that good and that compelling that he's either a very good writer, like a man such as myself, or maybe, dare I say, L. Ron Hubbard, or he's actually directly getting somehow mind controlled by some rogue government agency or something. I think it really comes down to one of those two things.
I mean, essentially, John Lear was saying that the UFO disease is you come up with a good case, you got a good story, but in order to keep the thing going, you start coming up with porkies.
Oh, yeah. And these people, and we even see this with the psychics, the lady who's the gypsy psychic from hundreds of years ago. Well, maybe she had the power for 7 years. Well, God dang, what's going to happen when she loses the power? She's going to start guessing. She's already set up as a crystal ball lady. You know what I mean? So.
Okay, well, that's enough about certain other individuals. What about your trip to Peru and the long skulls?
Oh, okay. Here's the deal. I've been fascinated by the elongated skull since I was a child. There is the most famous picture of an elongated skull in the world, and it's skull number 176. If anyone in the world has ever looked at a picture of an elongated skull, there's a very good chance it's skull number 176. That's written on the side of it with a magic marker, probably back in the 50s or 60s. I don't know. There's other markings on it with a marker done with a red marker. In other words, maybe they had so many of these at one time, they were marking on with markers. Well, on the front of this skull, it's written out Chongo, Chango, Chongo. In, Spanish, Chongo means monkey. And so I'm thinking, oh, well, it's a derogatory term to put on these people. Well, it just so happens Chongo is the name of this cemetery near Paracas, where, and maybe it was a derogatory term there, because what happened is the Nazca lines, the world famous Nazca lines, which I was at, and I've personally sent you pictures, you have pictures of me at the Nazca lines, even like off in the distance, urinating, with my beer bottle, with the, anyway. But the Nazca lines, the Nazca lines were created by the Paracas people. And then the Paracas people were slaughtered by the Nazca people. And not that the Nazca people would ever give a damn, because they've probably been gone 600 or 700 years, but we now know them as world famous Nazca lines, when really they're the Paracas people lines. But these Paracas people were people that lived here. I have no reason to believe they had UFOs. I have no reason to. They are connected with a lot of these megalithic ruins. And so they have some type of technology that was seemingly almost otherworldly. But the truth is their skulls are larger than ours, much larger. Now, when I went to Paracas, to the Jose Ferrero, museum, where they show 47 of these skulls, it happened to be closed because of the big storm. It was being remodeled. This was legit and everything. But, having my conspiratorial mind, I was thinking, oh my gosh, it's a conspiracy or whatever. But back there at the what they call a backpack or a hostel or whatever, but it's kind of a high-end hostel. I got some insider information. The guy told me to go to Ica, which the Paracas is in the region of Ica, but Ica is also a city, I-C-A. You might, mispronounce it with Inca, which is I-N-C-A, but it's not that. It's Ica, I-C-A. It's like the state capital or whatever. It's an hour away. So we went there, and that is actually where the skull is. And we went off in a room, and we were looking at the skull, and it was me and Donnie, and he had his iPhone with him, megapixel picture, and the guard told us not to take any pictures. And then he left the room for what I estimate to be 70, maybe 80 seconds. The amount of pictures that we took in that time was probably less than 10, but I've got some stunning. I was 3 inches away from skull number 176 that I've been looking at since a child. And let me tell you, to obfuscate the story, they have right there an entire display that tells you how all of this stuff was done by cradle boarding, where they would get the infants and they put them in this trap on their head and everything like this, to make their heads conical. Well, there ain't no cradle boarding that's going to, change the mass of a skull. It's not going to make it bigger. And not only that, there's these occipital plates that you and I have on the back of our head, because there's 3 plates. You have your frontal plate, and you have your left occipital plate and your right occipital plate, and they are separated by the sagittal suture, which just goes right from the top of your head down here like this. It's the biggest suture on your head. It's looks like kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. These skulls didn't have that. They just have a frontal plate and one plate that doesn't have a name, but if you put the occipital plates together, it would be that plate.
Well, this is very important because Maria Wheatley here in Wiltshire has discovered exactly similar things, but these weren't told. A lot of people massacred here in Wiltshire and buried in long barrows here a couple of thousand years ago with exactly that description of the plate, and for some reason they were massacred, or they were gathered together and ritually killed in some way.
Yes, Maria Wheatley, she's one of the most brilliant people on the planet. And she's this amazingly beautiful woman from England who has done the research, and her and Brian Forrester, and there's other people like Steve Quayle, and I had decided that I wasn't going to mention his name, because even though there's some good researchers like Steve Quayle and Timothy Alberino, they are people that have these like belief systems that ties it into with all this, Armageddon stuff and everything like that. So I can't go there. But Maria Wheatley is someone who's really done a lot of work to, bring up, and not only that, all the work that she's done with these sacred sites in England, showing the around Stonehenge and these other things, and then how the military's taken control of these, and they're not being preserved correctly. And so it's a tragedy.
Yeah, well, having a tank going over it's one way of keeping the public off it, I suppose.
Yes. And I'm a really big fan of Maria Wheatley and Brian Forster.
So what about these skulls? You got in there, and how many were there around? You said that there were hundreds of them.
No, let me tell you.
Was that another place?
Well, no, I was told there was thousands of them in the building that I was in by the guy who, when they had the storm in Veracruz, they had to move all the skulls to preserve them. Well, they, I guess, got to deal with the government or whatever. Well, they stored those skulls, which are now back in Veracruz, were stored at the Ica Museum. Well, not in the display cases, back in the back where there's a warehouse that's like 20 feet tall and it's a block long. And it is filled from the bottom to the top with elongated skulls, some stacked haphazardly, some being organized and stuff like this. And this was told to me personally by a man not offering this information, but after he found out what I was down there for. He was one of the guys they used as a local laborer in Veracruz, because he was it's a very small town. He was kind of one of their upper class guys, I guess, or whatever. So to move that stuff. So obviously in the room they put it in was the room where they had all this stuff, other stuff. And that's why on my next trip to Peru, we're going to try to be under the good graces of some local officials in Ica, and see what we can do to support their, cultural and art scene down there, because they've got a really good one.
And describe the art scene down there?
Miles, you understand? I'm trying to support something that they got down there.
Good. Okay, that's fine. So you've done these expeditions. I mean, what brought you to do these things? What drove you to do these?
This is something I've wanted to do my entire life, but I've been tied down by working like a 9-to-5 job and having to, work, living from paycheck and everything like this, basically for my entire life. And I was raised in a way, some people even think I was raised with a silver spoon, but I mean, everyone in my family, like on both sides of my family is a, at least, in my eyes, successful in their fields and stuff like this. And I'm someone who is, I'm an artist, right? And so, and being an artist in Lubbock, Texas, is really hard, and then I hadn't lived my whole life in Lubbock, but I had,
is that because art's just basically not recognized, or it's just difficult, or are they just?
I really don't know. Lubbock, Texas is a great place, but it's very conservative. It's ultra conservative. It was considered one of the most conservative, counties in the United States. And a good friend, a lady who I grew up with, and I'm not going to mention her name, I'm very good friends with her kids. I basically grew up with her. She was like the housewife or whatever that spoke at the convention for Judge George W. Bush to, rally America to the new, Bush era, And
I mean, are you suggesting that if you were an artist, being a man, is that somehow effeminate because you haven't eaten 6-foot thick steaks?
Oh, no, it's a waste of time. See, in Lubbock, Texas, we're farmers. That's not work. You got down, you do your farming. You be a blacksmith, you be a salesman or something like that. And so there's lots of incredibly talented people doing music in Lubbock, Texas, but they're also doing a regular job too. It's not considered. No, it's not considered. But I think that's really changed a lot, because look at it. Natalie Maines came from Lubbock, Texas. This is years later. She's younger than I am. And I'm actually know her father, and I've worked with her father. He's given me some good advice. Used to hang out at the studio where Lloyd Maines did a lot of recording.
Excellent. Well, I think we've run for about an hour now. So, do you want to say something? What do you want to summarize?
Well, let me just tell you this. In Peru, when I was in Puerto Maldonado, we saw a shaman. We wanted to do the ayahuasca ritual. The cabbie took me there. They had tabs that were like 3 wheels like this. We went in there, And the deal is, it was some old men, and it was also this guy named Brian from New Orleans. He assigned this man to be my interpreter. He started giving the history of Peru and talking about the exploitation. He blamed it all on the Germans. I thought this was so weird because we've always heard it was the Spanish, but then I remembered, I realized almost every man in that, in that room had a Spanish last name, so that wouldn't be good marketing to go on and on about the exploitation of the Spanish when all your customers have Spanish names. So he called it the Germans. But it was all this, what I know, it's all the same thing, but anyway, then he started doing the ritual, and he had this thing, alligator, head, just like the one that I've got right there, that I'll show to you later. But he was going, planta, planta, medicine, boa, boa blanca. And so he's talking about the medicine plant, and he's talking about the white boa. And so, I can tell you about that someday. There's
why not
whatever you like on our next.
Yeah, we'll do this, and I'll put your expeditions together. You've sent us some nice photographs and things. Is there anything further you want to say? I mean, if you want, how long do you want? Do you want to continue a bit longer? Or?
Well, last time we did a 2-hour interview, but what I'm trying to tell you, Miles, is I'm ready. If you want to do this now or do it after a small break.
We'll do it right now. We can have a quick break.
Yeah, what I'm ready to tell you about is the blood sacrifice ritual in Mexico.
Okay, we'll do that as a part 2.
Okay, we'll do that as a part 2.
Okay, we'll have a very quick break, and then we'll start